Get Pucked. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Get Pucked. Here today with me is Vito. You'll notice Dave is not here, but we do have a special guest. Initially, he was going to be a guest for the podcast, but I guess now he's just straight up filling in for Dave. Thanks so much, Marco. It's Marco D'Amico. You can find him on Twitter. He's the hockey expert, and at his website, scrimmageandstats.com. Marco, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, man, thanks for being here. Believe us, this is much more of a treat for us than it is for you.
Dave owes you one, Marco. Dave owes you one
as
now.
As long as it's not his firstborn child, I think we're good.
Yeah, we'll get to that another time, I think. But what we do want to talk today, however, is a little bit of hockey, as you can guess. So what we typically do here is we kind of just dive right into it, man. So the thing I want to talk about right off the bat, because it's kind of topical for tonight, the Habs are playing tonight. They might have actually just started. What is going through the mind of Dom Ducharme? Could you explain to me why, in your opinion, you think Pitlick, Dvorak, and Poehling deserve to sit? Is this a showcase thing, or is this just Dom doing his Dom thing and that we still, after all this time, just cannot seem to figure it out?
I mean, I think there's a little bit of everything in each of the situations. I think with Dvorak, they are being a little extra cautious with him since he's already been out twice this season with injury. So there's no rush that he comes back this game or that he comes back, in 2 games, as long as he's 100%. I can understand that. And, that means that Ryan Poehling draws in. So that makes a ton of sense to me as well. As it pertains to Rem Pitlick and Michael Pezzetta being out. Yeah, I think he's showcasing some guys here. I think realistically, who would you have taken out for those guys? You would have probably taken out, Armia, maybe Laurent Dauphin. I think at a certain point in time, there are some players that have earned their spot. Like Dauphin, for me, has outplayed basically everybody on the fourth line. So I don't think he should be out by any means. And I think Armia is being shopped. I think it's very, very evident. That was a Bergevin guy. And I for a team that wants to get skilled and fast, Armia is the antithesis of that. So, you're going the wrong way if you're keeping Armia. So, I could, especially if you're going to keep, a guy like Anderson, who's a big body, that can play in all situations. Armia becomes extremely expendable. And you have a right winger in Laval and Ullinen that's, basically begging for a call-up, another goal this weekend. So, I can definitely see him being showcased. And, of course, Mike Hoffman is probably also being showcased as we speak. Whether or not that happens, I doubt. That'll probably be in the next year that we see a guy like Hoffman move. But, again, putting your veterans out there. Dominic Ducharme said something interesting in regards to, not having the full control over who he gets to play and who he gets to make his lines with. And that was really telling to me because why do you have Cole Caulfield on a fourth line? Right, he's putting Cole Caulfield on a fourth line because he is, in his mind, the 4th best right winger available right now. They even have to shift Armia to left wing. So that to me tells me that Kent Hughes hasn't sent him down for some reason. And generally speaking, I think that's because they're waiting on trades. I think that the Canadiens are going to be moving out contracts, but I don't think they want to touch the young core. I think they're going to want to leave them in Laval because Laval is going to make the playoffs this year. So you may see some contracts coming back Montreal's way, and they may fill up the bottom 6. And that's when a guy like Cole Caulfield, a guy like Ryan Poehling can get sent back down to finish the year in Laval.
Well, that you dove into a couple other questions I was going to ask you, but talking about guys like this, so there's been so much talk lately, of course, from fans and media about trade possibilities and who is likely to go, who isn't likely to go. Yourself included, have been amongst many of these conversations. So obviously the key guys like Ben Chiarot is constantly named. Jeff Petry, as of late, seems to be a very hot topic. And apparently, depending on who you listen to, a lot of teams interested, regardless how much he's making. Listen, I'm just repeating. Not my opinion, just what we've been reading. Guys like Lehkonen as well. And then even guys like they're throwing out names like Kulak and stuff, which, okay, if you trade Kulak off, okay. But ultimately, I would like to know, realistically, in your opinion, what are the true expectations of the values of these guys at trade deadline? Let's not say what they should net you if you go to offseason. Let's say these guys end up getting moved at the trade deadline. And then you also mentioned guys like Hoffman as a potential, right? I doubt he's going anywhere too. But what should the fans truly expect? I mean, you got people saying first for everybody. Everybody's getting first. Everybody's getting roster players. Everybody's getting prospects. Like what would you tell fans to kind of cool their jets? Or are they right? Are some of these guys truly going to net you back some big returns?
I think some of them are going to net you back some big returns. I think that we're overly pessimistic about the value of players in this market, and we're constantly surprised at returns for players. I mean, I remember
We also
reading an
tend
article.
we also tend to overvalue a lot of players too,
We
right? So
overvalue the players that don't play on the team, and we undervalue the players that do play on the team. So we overvalue our prospects as a fan base, and we undervalue any single player that isn't on a linear trajectory to success. Any bump in the road, and they immediately lose all value. Even though, this is the same fan base that refused to trade Max Domi 1-for-1 for Patrick Laine. So will we do that trade today? Absolutely.
I completely forgot about that stupidity.
Not these fans.
Or remember how Galchenyuk was worth nothing more than a second rounder? Brought back almost a 72-point center for a season, and now you have Anderson. We need to chill, is what I tell everybody. I don't think it's ever going to be as crazy high, but as crazy low as people think. And I think the player that best personifies that is Jeff Petry. It's so polarizing seeing the way that people talk about him as if he's some
complete bum, complete pylon. Forget the past 4 years. Forget him.
There are 6 defensemen in this league that have scored 40 points in 4 consecutive seasons, and Jeff Petry was one of them. We were calling him Jeff Norris a year ago right now.
That's right.
Listen,
people
we all know that
just forget to play hockey.
Well, exactly, right? And I've said that in a previous episode. It's normal for certain players to start to decline, but it's not normal for a player to completely forget how to play hockey. And the guy's got wheels. He can still skate. He still has the tools. It's just he's having an off year. His mind is not in it at all for all the other reasons that we've all heard about it, right? And one thing we've known about Petry, even when he was with Edmonton, is when his head's not in it, his whole game's affected. So it's not a night in, night out. You could get a different version. It's consistent. He's either consistently good or consistently bad. And right now he's consistently bad. But the GMs around the league are not going to toss away everything that he's done or achieved in the last couple of years. He's got value. And if people who think otherwise are just, they're just looking at the fact that he's, earned $6.25 million for a few more years, and he's 34 years old. No,
but I think the everyday fan is reasonable to say, he is so bad that no matter how much goodwill was there from before in the Jeff Norris and all that stuff of a year ago, I mean, his play truly has not even fallen off a cliff. It's completely nosedive, bottom of the Atlantic. He is completely at the bottom.
Well, Matt, I get it, but
I'm just saying, I get from a fan's perspective when they look at it and say, how could this guy net you what he would have net you if we wanted to move him last year? I can understand the mindset.
He would have netted you far more than I came out and said that he would probably net you something along the lines of what Pacioretty got, which would be a top prospect, a first or second round pick, and a capped up. I feel like if they would have traded him last year, it would have been 2 first-round picks and your best prospect.
That's right. So his value did go down, but not to the point where he's a 4th. Trade me a 4th and a 7th and a salary down. Okay.
Well, you've seen some tweets, Marco, and I mean, you're very responsive on Twitter, and some of the tweets Jeff Petry for a 3rd and some
remember that Jeff Petry for PK Subban.
Yeah,
that was ridiculous. Come on.
It's insane.
Yeah,
I get people's affinity and love for PK Subban, but there's certain things that you just can't do. And you said it. There was one of your tweets that you had mentioned. Tell me that you bring in PK Subban as a free agent on a low cost at the end of the year. That's okay, fine. I'm cool with that. It's all right. But to say that you're going to trade Jeff Petry 1-for-1 for PK Subban is just.
That's why I said if they're trading Subban for Petry, there better be I don't know, their 2nd round pick and another 1st round pick the following year, or a top prospect that they have that's going with it, because that's what he's worth. That's basically it. And teams out west are extremely interested. I had a source straight up tell me, he goes, watch out, because I've heard that there are teams specifically in the Central Division that are looking at him. You look at a team like Dallas that's going to be shedding Klingberg very soon. That's not a core that wants to be rebuilding. That's a core that wants to still compete without losing value on a guy like Klingberg. So they may turn around and trade Klingberg for a first and a prospect and another asset. They can take that late first that they've gotten from a contender and flip it with another prospect for Jeff Petry in a cap dump, and boom, their problem of filling that top 4 slot is finished.
Instantly sold. Yep.
You're not going to fill it this summer. Chris Letang is one of the only ones. John Klingberg himself, he's not going to sign with you. There's maybe 3 or 4 top 4 right defensemen, and there are 32 teams in this league. So, chances are you're going to strike out. So why don't you get assurances so that your core doesn't basically waste the last years of his life in a guy like Jeff Petry?
Is Dallas, in your opinion, the front runner, you think?
I think it makes the most amount of sense. Julie Petry is from Houston. She's preggers as well. They want to be close to the States. It's a very easy lifestyle over there. And at the same time, and this is the thing, he fits that court. Like Jamie Benn is not getting any older. Radulov is not getting any older. You look at guys like Pavelski. He may resign, but he's not, he's basically at the tail end of his career as well. That's an old team. And if they decide to blow it up, like if they trade John Klingberg and they don't add, they're basically going towards the retools. And will Jamie Benn, will Tyler Seguin necessarily be on board? That brings up bigger questions. I think it's far easier for Dallas and Jim Nill to try and plug the hole that's left from John Klingberg leaving, since Heiskanen is the first defenseman. It's very easy for them to do that switch. Sorry about that. Very easy for them to do that switch. They're just one team. Like Washington can be an option. Nashville can be an option. There are a few teams, and I've been told it's not just 3 or 4 teams that have called and have like a legitimate interest. It's 6, 7.
So it could be a bidding war. You think a bidding war is possible here? Like, we've been talking about Ben Chiarot for like weeks as he's the premium player that's going to leave the roster to net you the biggest return, likely. Leckie, you hear people saying, yeah, Leckie is, maybe Leckie gets you a first and a late pick, and then Leckie's also, maybe he gets you a second and a prospect. So I don't think he's going to be the guy who brings you back the big return. But ever since Jeff Petry's name's come up, and fielding away the comments of those thinking that he's not worth a bag of pucks, it's like if there's a bidding war, this could be incredibly advantageous for the Habs, considering they also have a ton of space to bring back money, which I imagine is very attractive to a lot of teams as well. So we might be very, very surprised is where I'm heading with this.
Well, and especially if they take money back, right? Because they need money back. They absolutely need to have, some form of bodies coming back the other way, because they're not going to bring up their prospects to finish the year. So for me, at the end of the day, when you're looking at what they're going to do with trades, I expect them to be extremely creative with their trades, extremely active. Yes, Ben Chiarot's the easy one. I think Lehkonen obviously is going to be one of the more complicated trades, but I have utter confidence that if they really, really want to, if a team really wants Jeff Petry, that trade is going to happen.
The other thing a lot of Habs fans need to consider, I know there's a lot of people that want to get rid of Jeff Petry because of the season he's having. It's not going to be easy to replace what Jeff Petry brought. I mean, there's not many right-handed defensemen in the NHL who can move the puck the way he can and can produce 40, 50 points a season.
No, but if he's not going to be that guy anymore, then you got to.
Well, no, yeah, no, right? For sure. I'm not saying otherwise, but I'm just saying it's certain fans are like, their expectation is by getting rid of Petry, they're going to be a better team to get. No, they won't be. No. It's going to be hard to replace Jeff Petry on this team.
And they don't have a prospect in the pool that could do that.
Like they have on the left side, but not on the right side.
Yep. Exactly. And so this is one of the major things. Like if you trade a Jeff Petry, you're trading it for a future asset that's probably going to net you a right shot defenseman. That could be a late first round pick in this draft. That could be a prospect that's a right-handed shot as well. There's a lot of things to keep in mind. And I feel like, we're talking about these two when we're talking about like Chiarot and Lehkonen because, they're at the end of their contracts or restricted free agents.
You're right.
When you look at Petry, it's a complicated deal. But I feel like that advantages Montreal more because they have the flexibility. They know they're going to be trading out a guy like Jeff Petry. They know they're going to be trading out a guy like Lehkonen. That's going to free up salaries and contract spots for them. So I think they're going to be able to take on. And the biggest question of it all is if Carey Price does not come back, his LTIR stays till the end of the season. That gives
massive.
Montreal a lot
Flexibility to take on
of
cap.
flexibility
Yeah.
to take on contracts. And there's a team in Vegas right now that's pretty damn
Oh
screwed.
yeah, they're
Oh.
big
So,
trouble.
if you want to go and pick up a Riley Smith for cheap,
That's
and
the
then
name
turn
that came
around,
to mind for me too.
yeah, and then turn around and flip him to a contender at 50% for an even bigger return, you have that liberty. So these are the kinds of moves I would expect from Kent Hughes if we know that Carey Price simply cannot go this season.
So I want to jump in and start talking about the draft a little bit, the upcoming draft, and it all looks like now with the restrictions being lifted that it's going to happen in Montreal. I mean, still to be confirmed, but it looks like it's going to happen in Montreal. So Shane Wright had a slow start to the season. We all know that. We saw that. But he's picked it up of late.
Shane Wright is a difficult player to look at, man. You expect Connor Bedard and you're disappointed because he plays a less flashy game. It's unfortunate.
Okay, so to help certain fans who haven't had the opportunity to really watch him or watch highlights of him, or if they only watched highlights and they made their assumptions, who would you say is a good comparable for his game? I'm not saying that whoever you compare him to that's who he's going to be, but like who does his game resemble a lot for you?
Everyone says Patrice Bergeron. I think that makes a ton of sense. I mean, very smart, intelligent, two-way player he's going to affect the game in all realms. I feel like if you look at a prospect level and you think recently, he's like a level right above what Nick Suzuki was. And I feel like a lot of people think that Nick Suzuki is that tweener first-line center. I think Shane Wright is a bona fide championship-winning first-line center. I don't think he's going to be like Sidney Crosby level offense.
He's not going to get you off your seat in the sense like a Connor Bedard.
Well, he might because he has the ability, he has the tools. I think what I think what Shane Wright has that everyone seems to not remember is a year less of development, a year and a half less of development. And you're looking at guys coming out of the OHL right now. There's a reason why the Canadian Major Junior outside of the WHL is not very well represented in the top 20 because a lot of these guys didn't play full seasons. Like the Q is already having itself like a pretty mediocre draft the way it's looking like, but the OHL usually dishes out players. And outside of Shane Wright, not many people know about someone like Ty Nelson, Del Bell Belouz, Owen Beck. They're going to start climbing now as we speak because they're all catching up. And we're noticed the same thing with Shane Wright. Shane Wright is now starting to heat up again. And he's close to the 1.5 point per game after starting very much close to the point per game. And that's going to keep going up throughout the season. And when you look at Shane Wright and you're just looking at the box score and you're looking at the offense, it's not as impressive as Bedard, and Bedard is the better prospect. But when you're comparing it to other first overall picks, like say Nico Hischier played in a very easy Maritime division for the Halifax Mooseheads the year of his draft and didn't really torch it. In fact, Shane Wright has a better points percentage right now than he did at the same time, and it was far easier to score in the QMJHL 4 years ago or now 5 years ago than it is now in the OHL. The OHL has gotten much tighter. So I think Shane Wright remains number one. However, I think this is the draft where you don't regret not winning the lottery because 2, 3, even 4, in my opinion, are top line players to be as well.
So, okay, then would it be wise, or should Montreal at least consider, if they do win the lottery draft and they're the first overall pick, to trade down, or would you keep the pick?
Yeah, I'd keep the pick. I mean, how about I put it this way? The reason why I think they end up keeping the pick is the same reason why they traded in the first place. Everybody would see that coming. I don't feel like someone would really have to be in love, like absolutely in love with Shane Wright to make that trade within the top 5, because or else it just doesn't make sense. And really, you haven't seen a trade in the top 5 on draft day in 20 some odd years since the Sedins, basically? No, since 2003 with Marc-Andre Fleury and Eric Staal. So for me, it would be shocked. Personally, if Montreal gets the opportunity to draft Shane Wright, they shouldn't really think twice about it. They should just draft Shane Wright. It's just if they pick second and it's Logan Cooley, or if they pick third and they pick Simon Nemec, or they end up picking Matthew Savoie, it's not that bad. It's not like they suffered this season, the worst season in modern era, for nothing. They got an exceptional player.
Okay. And so since you're talking about what the Habs should, and obviously we're in agreement with you, but I am curious. In a hypothetical situation, I congratulate you. You now run the Montreal Canadiens. You are the man at the top.
They're
What
the
would,
ball guys.
and
It's a
I'm
heck
not
of a
giving
promotion.
I'm not giving you the fair time to prepare yourself as one would in that position, but let's just go with it and say, what would be your game plan for next year, for the 22-23 season? Like, what would you want the team to trend towards? What would you want? What are some of the things that you would immediately institute and put in place as changes? Would you play more of the kids? Would you try to load up on veterans to help the young ones and keep your prospects in Laval and not do this up and down? Like, what's Marco's perfect plan for everything to go perfect next season?
I think you have to keep rolling out I think you need to keep rolling out the assets that you have on long-term contracts. So this is why like a lot of people want to trade the entirety of the team and then just like go from scratch and have nothing but prospects like for example what Arizona would like to do. That's not something I do. We've seen teams like Edmonton and Buffalo just literally dwindle there forever. Even Florida was accumulating top pick after top pick after top pick for how long? And only now they put it together because they finally got actual structure and depth. A GM that was filling the rosters, not the paychecks. It's definitely different. So I prefer Montreal go that route. I think, if you look at other rebuilds in the past, I think Montreal has some key pieces that are already ahead of the game. You have guys like Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Romanov, Goulet. Already that puts you ahead of the game. And then you have a more than likely top 3 pick this year. So that's your core right there. And you can continue adding to that over the seasons with trades. I think that's what they got to do. They got to be smart. I don't want them to trade every single veteran on the team. I think that you need a mix. So you have to choose which veterans. And I think that's what they're doing right now. Based on what we're seeing right now and based on contract status and whatnot, I'd love to keep Arturi Lehkonen. But Arturi Lehkonen is probably going to ask you for a contract that's superior to that of Yoel Armia's. And that's already an anchor of a contract now. I think I would move a guy like him, but I would keep a guy like Toffoli. I would keep a guy like Anderson, at least for an extra year.
And Paul Byron.
Yes.
I'd keep Paul Byron.
Paul Byron's going nowhere. That contract's
I know. But
No.
even if he had the value and he could move, given that
he's
he's a low maintenance guy.
He should be moved next year at deadline by retaining 50%. I think that's a stronger value for asset management because this is a guy that when he is healthy, lays it all on the ice, and he's such a valuable and trustworthy bottom 6 player that I wouldn't have a problem having him on the same line as say a Jesse Ullinen next year to really shoulder the line and the responsibility, especially defensive responsibility. So it is really important to keep some of them on defense. Unfortunately, you're losing a lot of that veteran leadership. Hopefully Edmondson comes back because that is the crux of it to begin with. But then I think it's going to become very evident very quickly that a guy like Caden Goulet and a guy like Alexander Romanov are quickly going to become the young veterans of that blue line, and they're going to handle a lot of the leadership responsibilities. That's what they were drafted for, and I feel like they're going to get their opportunity under Hughes and Gorton rather quickly.
So let me go back to the draft for a second. I just wanted to who would you consider to be an underrated first round pick? Somebody that people are not really talking about but could rise up the ranks. And in contrast, who would you say would also go up a la KK, a la Kotkaniemi, how he went from like being a 15 to then some people putting him in the top 10, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, he could be a top 5 and ends up going 3rd overall. Who are some of those players in the upcoming draft that you think can jump up or even drop down?
So jump up, Frank Nazar of the U.S. National Development Program. He plays with Logan Cooley. You watch this kid play, and it's like watching the London Knights version of Patrick Kane.
But is he benefiting because he's playing with Logan Cooley?
I think both are benefiting from playing with each other. Like it's if you ever watched Taze play with Kane in Chicago, like on the same line, it's that. It reminds me. The combination of those two players is exactly what one sees with Taze and Kane. Cooley plays a game that's very much like Taze, has a little bit more finish, a little bit more skill. Taze was a high skill player in the NCAA, but kind of toned it down when he got to the NHL and focused more on the two-way game. But they play that same style. So when I watch Frank Nazar, like no one's talked about him much because he didn't have the hype. And right now, I think he's over 2 points per game playing against USHL talent. I mean, that's insanity. That's going to get you all kinds of points. And that's basically, if you look at it, that's similar numbers to what like a guy like Hughes did. Jack Hughes had a lot of good pace, but he was playing with guys like Zegras and Caulfield. Right now, it's Cooley, Nazar, Snuggerud, Cutter Gauthier. There's a lot of guys in there. That's a deep team again. And they're leading it by a country mile. And that's what's key to pay attention. Nazar is a guy who really a lot of people have like 10, 13, 15. You're going to find him in the top 5. If he keeps this up, everyone's taking notice now. He's risen into practically every major scouting rankings top 10. I think he finishes in the top 5.
Then who could drop down? Somebody that's in the top
Brad
10
Lambert.
now that... Pardon?
Brad Lambert.
Okay.
And that's not me. I think he should be a top 10 pick, no question. But I think he may drop down out of the top 10 because of his slow start in Liga, and then obviously changing teams and going to the Pelicans mid-season. That might rub a lot of scouts the wrong way, especially from a character perspective. So you could see him dropping out of some lists of the top 10. Another one is Joachim Kamel. He started off really strong, like record-breaking October and November, and is now pointless in his last 10 games in Liga, which is basically half of the games he's played this year. So it goes to show you, like, when a player is super hot and given like 20 minutes a game in a league, like, it bodes well for them. Now he's kind of, not shooting at 30% anymore, and it looks like he's
normal again. He's a human.
Exactly. So he has the tools to be considered a top 10 pick. Like, he has those effective tools. For me, it's just, he's probably going to end up going, instead of going second or third, like a lot of people had him at the beginning of the year, you may see him slide to like 7-8, which is not that big of a slide, but when we're talking about it, that is what it is.
So one thing, I'll just ask it straight up, because you mentioned it before as part of the core. Are you bullish on Cole Caulfield? Because a lot of people seem to think like already the book is out on him, and he is not what he was promised to be. Versus me personally, I think this kid, given the time and given the proper structure with the proper coach.
Track now, Matt.
I'm not. I think he's going to be a 40 goal scorer in the NHL. I truly do. But some people are not sold on him, and some people are already done with him. You got people putting him in trade offers already to get him off the team. Are you bullish on him, or are you like, well, listen.
No, look, I'll put it this way. This is the worst Canadiens team of all time. This is the worst start to any regular season in the last 60 years. This team is not good. And one of their major weaknesses is at center. Cole Caulfield has played with a top 6 NHL center this season for all of 3 games. Yes, a lot of it is on him, but the start of that descent, or the ruining of his confidence, was Ducharme right from the get-go. Because the moment there was a thought that there could be victory, the moment it wasn't out of reach, it was everyone step out of the way, and we're going to put the best players in our eyes on the ice. And we don't give a shit if you're not ready. We are, quote, and I love this excuse, we're protecting you. And it's like, well, no, you're not protecting him. In fact, what you're doing, this is exactly what you did to Nick Ehlers when he came to play for the Halifax Mooseheads his first 10 games coming from Europe. He was benched half the time. And then he started finding chemistry with Drouin in Halifax, and boom, started playing him top minutes. It's exactly what happened to Caulfield last year with Suzuki. They caught fire, they had chemistry, played them together the entire playoffs. That is Dom Ducharme in a nutshell. So
I take it you're not a Dom Ducharme fan.
No, and I'm a Mooseheads fan, so you could just imagine.
If you've listened to our last few episodes or had the chance to even tune in at some point, you will hear me often bitch, if you want to say, or complain about Dom Ducharme.
It's the structure or lack thereof.
There is none.
Or rather,
There's no
his
system.
deployment. We don't his system. We don't understand. And we are not NHL caliber coaches by a country mile. But when 95% of people have the same consensus that you are doing something incorrect, maybe there's some truth to that. And
Dude,
we
it
just
doesn't. You
can't
don't need
understand
to
them.
be an NHL caliber coach to see another coach's system. If there is none, and it's apparent that there is none, it's not going to take long for people to figure out or not be able to figure out what the hell is going on. And when it comes to Dom Ducharme, I said it before and I'll say it again. I still, till this day, can't figure out what the fuck is his system. I can't figure it out. I don't know what it is. All I can see is, at least defensively, is the Habs defense and the whole team collapse in front of their goalie, but they let the players come in. It's like you're letting them play the puck in the defensive zone and take possession and get control of the game. So, anyways, I've said this countless times. Dom Ducharme has to go. I just don't think now's the right time. And a lot of people are saying, "Oh, maybe it's time to get rid of
He'll
him."
finish. He'll finish the
He'll
season.
finish.
the
If they
year.
had a coach, if they had a coach in mind, and there was somebody that they wanted, they would have already gotten rid of Ducharme to bring that person in. They don't have somebody in place right now, or if they do it, they're gonna.
I think they have someone in mind, and it's just not that
No.
person probably wants to finish out the season. I don't think you're hiring a coach of experience to replace Dom Ducharme. I think it's going to be another rookie coach, but a well-regarded rookie coach that's more offensively inclined, because the grand majority of coaches that have come out of Quebec over the last 20 years are defensive-minded coaches.
Well, they all follow the Jacques Lemaire system, right?
Which is hilarious, because the Q is the worst defensive league in Canada. It's absolutely incredible. Like, their defense suck, and they produce like maybe one good defenseman every 3 years. It's mind-boggling that the coaches that come out of that league are the defensive ones. But yeah, here we are. So I think a guy like Benoit Gros, I think a guy like Pascal Vincent make far more sense than a guy like Dom Ducharme. Dom Ducharme relies solely on the ability of his centers to carry the puck up with the defenseman. It doesn't go to wingers, which is why this system doesn't work, because they don't have experienced centers that come down low to get the puck. One of the main reasons Montreal was so good last year, especially in the playoffs, was because Phil Deneau and Nick Suzuki are masters at sinking down into the defensive zone to help their defensemen and start breakouts immediately. And that's what helped them so much over the last 2 years with Suzuki specifically. Now Suzuki, they see him coming, so the center of the opposing team is already waiting for him at the center of the defensive zone, and the defenseman is right there behind his centerman, waiting to get to that puck in case he happens to get by the initial coverage. So everybody knows how to beat Ducharme's system in his own zone, and that's how they get trapped. Unfortunately, they haven't adapted it, which is hilarious, because I'm some idiot that's just calling it as we see it. And, as you're watching the game right now against the Devils, it's happening again. So if he doesn't have the strong center line, and if he doesn't have defensemen that are easily able to move the puck up, he has no system. Part of this is on Ducharme.
100%.
Part of this is horrendous roster construction from Bergevin. Talk about not knowing your coach. And that unfortunately, if Jeff Petry wasn't able to effectively move the puck up every single game, they were finished, because he was the only defenseman that was able to go end to end without issue.
So this is a question that I have for you that you've debated it on Twitter, and people have brought it up. I mean, I think it's come up even on my Twitter feed and on the Get Puck Twitter feed. Would you trade the first overall pick if Montreal were to win for Alex
Not for
Lafreniere?
Lafreniere.
No chance.
That's what I said. I agree.
I mean, look, I'll put it to you this way. Lafreniere is struggling at the beginning of his career in New York.
Yeah.
If he were a Montreal Canadian, he would already be traded.
He'd have been crucified. Yeah, I know. And that was the.
He would already be traded right now. He would have been traded for Eichel. I'm telling you right now. He would have already been gone.
It's hard for Quebec-born players to come here. One of the reasons is because whether it's the fans and the media that put the pressure, or whether it's just themselves that put the pressure on themselves, is just.
If Alexis Lafreniere were drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, the Montreal fans would have forced Guy Lafleur to unretire his jersey just so they can give him number 10. That's how crazy that would have been. That would be that level. They would call him the Demo Pablon just because they would want someone to be so much like the last superstar, right? The last offensive superstar. And ultimately, that's what's holding them back, is this inability to move on and change what they're doing and the way they view the franchise. You don't need a French Canadian superstar. You need a superstar. This team hasn't had a point per game player in like 27 years. It's about time. Like
the last one was the last point per game player. No, well, Kovalev got over a point per
80,
game.
He got like
84 and 82.
For real?
Yeah.
Bless his soul.
But before that, it was Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, it was Donfus, exactly. So it's once in 30 years for me or 27 years is just not enough. And
that is far too long.
Consistently, like even multiple point per game seasons doesn't exist. Montreal had good defensemen, great goalies, but no offensive superstar. And that has plagued them since Lafleur, in my honest opinion. So it's going to be, for me, I would keep that first overall pick, and I would trust that Gorton and Hughes are going to revamp that developmental department, and that is going to lead to the success of the Montreal Canadiens. That they draft, we're focused on this draft. They're probably going to finish in the bottom 5 next year as well. And that's going to be a wicked bottom 5. So if they can just rebuild over 2 or 3 years, like finish in the bottom for 2 or 3 years or close to the bottom, but play kids and push out stuff for fans to see and players to engage with, at that point, I think that you're going to start to see a shift, and it's going to be about speed. It's going to be about skill.
Well, we forgot about one guy. I just want to touch on him because for some reason, I don't know, we started talking about French Canadian players, and it just came back to me entirely. Does Jonathan Drouin survive the trade deadline?
I think he does. I don't think he did. I don't think he would have if he were healthy, but I think he does now. And that's a guy that you can easily move in the offseason or a trade deadline next year. Like he nets you a first next year for sure. Like that's not even a question. I know a lot of people think he's worth nothing, but he nets you a first.
Well, and
if you retain half.
There have been teams that have been interested in the past in him. St. Louis.
We've got confirmation already.
Right?
Yeah,
Nashville apparently has recently inquired on him too to see if he's available.
Yeah. Well, they said today, Nashville came out and said they were actually not looking for defensemen. They're looking for a scoring left winger. The Habs happen to have 2 that are available.
But yeah, they do. You see, I'm in the school of thought right now. Is obviously you want to try to trade as many as you can and as many assets as you can by the trade deadline. But Hughes does have the luxury of with certain players of being able to be patient for the offseason and probably start a bidding war for certain players. And players like Jeff Petry and Drouin probably come to mind when it comes to that. But I have a feeling Jeff Petry is going to probably be gone by the trade deadline.
Oh, I think so too. I think
say
that's
so.
fair. It's just I don't want them to just clean house in one shot. I want them to do it gradually. Like the Rangers did it right. They got rid of 2-3 guys 1 year, then they got rid of another 2 guys the year after, and then they finished it off by trading Kevin Hayes last year.
So this is my last question about Jeff Petry and maybe even for the night. But if they were to trade Jeff Petry for a Pacioretty type deal, who is a prospect that falls into that Suzuki mold or that the Habs should look for across the league for the rebuild or the reconstruction phase that they're going to go through?
Like a top level prospect with a salaried player back
that is realistic. That is realistic in the sense that you can get him in a Petry trade.
Yeah. Okay. So Dallas would be probably Maverick Bourque, in my opinion. I feel like that makes a ton of sense, and it's someone that the Canadiens really liked in his draft year. I think with Dallas, you're looking at either Luke Evangelista or Zachary Lehler, because their top prospects are basically Askarov. Nashville. What did I say?
Dallas
again.
Sorry, Nashville. Nashville would be Askarov and Zvechkov as their untouchables, and then basically play with Evangelista or why am I blanking now? Evangelista or Lehler. And then if you look at maybe a team like Washington, if they swap with Montreal and take Schultz for Petry, there goes your salary difference, and then you can give a first and a prospect. That could be Vincent Iorio, who is a good right defenseman. I doubt that they would give Hendrix Lapierre, but Vincent Iorio is turning heads right now in junior hockey, and the Canadiens are very thin on right defense, and he looks like he's going to be a pretty solid top 4. So there are teams that are going to be willing to make that move, and I'm sure we're going to hear about more of them as we go along leading up to the trade deadline.
And so my final question for you is on a plus or minus in terms of first round picks that the Canadiens are going to have in the upcoming draft, what is your pass or fail grade for them? How many first round picks must they have leading into this draft year to be, they Hughes and now I'm blanking.
Jeff Gordon.
And Gordon, like, do they get a passing grade from you? Does it have to be 2? Does it have to be 3? Where are you at?
It doesn't matter to me how many first round picks they get. It's the value they get in return. Like if they get a really good prospect instead of a first round pick, like I won't be sad, right? Because it's always going to speed up a rebuild if you're getting a prospect as opposed to a pick, because the prospect has already done some development and will be
Very
closer
true
to the NHL generally. Now that being said, even giving that, I would expect at minimum 2 first round picks this year. And then they have a very early second round pick. If they stay the way they are, they're picking 33rd in the second round, which is basically yet another late first. They picked 31st last year. So It's basically the same value. And so that's something to keep in mind. Personally, for me, my over-under, I wouldn't be shocked if they had 3 first round picks. I wouldn't be shocked. That it'd be all in 2022. Maybe not, but I think they're going to have.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those that think that they're going to get unprotected 2023 picks are probably sleeping on or taking some very good substance. But I believe that at least those that are, I believe 2023 protected first round picks could be on the move this year, especially for like a team like Florida that's going all in or a team like Colorado that's going all in. You may be able to get a protected pick there for the next draft. So it'll be interesting, especially in hockey deals. Like if Toffoli is moved, for example, that could be an option as well.
I really hope it doesn't get moved, though. I really think.
Me too. But
I'd like to
if they get an offer that's simply just too good to pass up, like I'll understand. Like it's one of those deals where you're just kind of like, I had to make it, and we've seen that with Bergevin in the past. Like when he was approached for Dale Weiss and Thomas Fleischmann, and they offered him a second and a no, like that was too good to pass up. So I can definitely understand, deals making you change course. So that's why I think it's going to be a very interesting time, because you have a player agent right now that's super respected around the league and then knows how to negotiate. So it could lead to some pretty dynamic trade creativity.
Well, here's hoping, man. We're gonna end it here. Marco, we really, really appreciate you taking the time and having a chat with us. It's been super insightful and getting to see you now. Now I put a face to the voice on the radio when I hear you on the weekend. So it's fantastic. Again, everybody, this was Marco D'Amico. He's at The Hockey Expert on Twitter. You'll also find his website, scrimmageandstats.com. Marco, really, again, just super. Thanks so much, man.
It's a pleasure, man, and I hope Dave has a healthy baby to talk about when I talk to him.
Well, us too. Dave missed a good one, but hopefully he'll be back for the next episode. Everybody, again, please, thank you so much for listening. Like, subscribe. You know the drill. We've been saying it the whole time. And for Vito and myself this time, this was Get Pucked. Get Pucked.